Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of STFU, the interview show that's a lot nicer than it sounds. I'm your host, Zac, here with my good friend Adam, and today we have a very special guest on deck, Mr. Larry Wilhelm, author of Book 3 of Against the Aeon Throne, the Rune Drive Gambit. So Larry hails from the frozen northern icescape, the land of the Wendigo and the mythical Yeti, also known as Canada, and has been gaming since the release of the legendary Red Box, giving him lots of that OG cred. Larry currently lives in Edmonton, where he works as a registered nurse, has 2 children, holds a degree in physical education, and generally likes to promote good health and well-being. Mr. Larry Wilhelm, welcome to the show.
Hey!
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Happy to be here.
Thanks for coming back and seeing us again, man. We really appreciate it.
No worries.
Glad to have you. So, before we get started, Larry, is there anything else that you kind of wanted to mention about yourself? Anything we missed in the introduction?
No, I think you got it all. I still working as a nurse. I still have 2 kids, so you're spot on. Still live next door to the Wendigo.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
you guys dangerous. Good pals?
He's always hungry.
The first time I learned about a Wendigo, I think it was a comic book, some kind of, it's like Spider-Man comic or something.
For me, it was the Scary Stories. Remember those? The Scary Stories books. Those like collection of like scary stories for kids, and there was like black and white
like
drawings.
Goosebumps?
Yeah, but it was like pre that, and they were like legitimately scary, and like they had these really, really scary drawings in them that were like black and white and really like grotesque and distorted and stuff. And there was like a story about the Wendigo in one of those, and I've been scared ever since. Yeah.
Well, I will say, nothing to play around with. Be careful out there, Larry. You got to watch out for that Wendigo.
Appreciate it.
So, before we jump into specifics about the AP, how did you get into tabletop role-playing and as a player and then eventually as a writer? Take us through that.
Yeah, wow. That takes me back quite a while. It's I had a good friend, my buddy Leo. We would sneak into his older brother's room and steal all his books when he'd go to the club or whatever they call it. And we were probably 11, 12, 13 years old, and we would take the books out, pour through whatever we could, write whatever we could, and draw maps and get ready to play. And when his brother would come home, we'd have to sneak everything back. So we'd stay up probably from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. and then have to put it away before last call kind of idea, and he got home.
So you didn't get to actually memorize the rules? You sort of had to make up your own interpretation?
It was a mix of the two. Definitely when we first started, it was a bastardization of the rules for sure, but maybe that's what
Were you limited to leveling up until your brother went out again? You're like, you can't go any further. We got to wait till bro leaves,
We only had up to level 3 in that red book, so we were limited to level 3 until we got to have hold of the blue one that got you up, I think, to level 7 or 9. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, time was of the essence. But, later on, we got our own copies. But I always remember his dad was a taxi cab driver, so he'd be out all night. His brother would leave, and we would just play. It was great.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Would you take turns DMing, or you just kind of both were players and makeshift DMs?
Actually, I didn't start DMing till much later. Like I would just play. He was the one running it all because he would be able to sneak more peeks than I could. I don't think I DM'd my first game till university, embarrassingly enough, and that kind of ties me into my writing. I was taking my nursing degree, and suddenly I was done, and I was bored, and I had all this time on my hand, and went to a local hobby store and saw the dungeon magazine, Adventure Path, Age of Worms, and I fell in love with it. And then that magazine stopped, but all the people who were doing those adventure paths went on to a thing called Paizo, and it asked me if I wanted to forward my subscription to this Paizo company, and lo and behold, I did. And they used to have open calls, and I just kept applying for open calls, and them telling me no, and they must have got sick of me applying and said, fine, idiot, write one.
And which one was that? That was your first one?
Yeah, it was for Pathfinder Society Scenario Season 0, Fingerprints of the Fiend.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. A long and storied history that led you to this point. But but here we are now.
And you made it. You made it.
I
did. You made it.
You're on STFU.
I'm big time.
You should really feel like you've been successful in your life.
This is how you know.
Yeah, next week they're unveiling my Hollywood star, so I'm pretty jazzed.
Oh man, there you go.
Big week
You're
for
in
you,
there now.
man.
Yeah, big
week. Fantastic. So, Larry, as you know, we are a Starfinder podcast, and we love to champion the system. But from what I have looked up of your work, you have written a lot more Pathfinder than Starfinder, although a pretty good bit of Starfinder, I will say. So I was just curious what your general thoughts are on the system Starfinder and how that compares to Pathfinder 1E.
Yeah, they're pretty similar. Obviously, they kind of grew from the other. And I think the reason why I have more Pathfinder credits is just Pathfinder's been around longer. I think if you look back since Starfinder's being started, I think I actually have more Starfinder credits. I was approached by Thurston Hillman to write for the Starfinder scenario for Gen Con, and I just loved the opportunity to do science fiction. It was such a change from what I'd been doing. Not that I'm not grateful for fantasy or bored of it. It was just something different and got the juices going again. And, I think the biggest difference for me is like even creating monsters. It's such a cleaner way to do that and doing encounters in Starfinder than it was back in 1E. 1E, we had these huge spreadsheets that we'd have to use. And with Starfinder, it's just really clean at the back. I just really use what's in the back of the Alien Archive and just follow that method. And it's cool because you can make any monster, any level, any class, and it just kind of pours out nicely.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? I'm not sure if everyone who's listening has looked into creating a monster. Well, what is kind of the process of that?
Yeah, well, the first thing you want to find out kind of is, what its challenge rating is, how you want it to challenge the party. And it's then, as boring as it sounds, it's quite a bit of math. In the old system, you were kind of limited to, if you're doing a troglodyte, troglodyte would be a CR, whatever it would be, and you're stuck there. And if you wanted to make it anything different, you'd have to add classes. And it was like, if it was like a fighter for a troglodyte, it was like 2 levels equals 1, and it was just a nightmare. And then if you did something else, it was like, this one is full level, and you wanted to just stop halfway in. A good example was Starfinder. The first adventure I wrote, I wanted to make an Eton have 2 heads, and the heads were kind of against each other. And I think normally an Eton was a CR5 creature, but with Starfinder, I can make an Eton be whatever CR I wanted just by following, what was done. And it was just easier. The way you can tell they've put a lot of thought into it. Even that spreadsheet was amazing. I think it was Sean Reynolds who made it. Amazing that he made that up. And then they could tell that through the years, they wanted to kind of make that system more streamlined, because I bet you that was quite a barrier to entry, to getting into writing. Because, we're all coming with writing thinking, okay, I'm good with grammar, I'm a good writer. Oh my God, now I got to do stat blocks and math. It's pretty tricky.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that sounds like a very kind of runaround or convoluted, it's just very stretched out way to do it versus. And so what you're saying is that what they provided in the CRB, or in the Alien Archive rather, the rules for creating your own monsters there is like the system for making monsters for Starfinder. Like you have the same tools available to you that the developers or writers of that's awesome.
They've done a really good job of making it more accessible for everyone, I think. Of course, there's some areas where it doesn't fit a rule, and you can talk back and forth with your developer, and they find what works. Maybe the monster I make is, well, hey, this is a little bit too tough. We have to either increase the CR or pull it back. It's kind of a bit of an art form, but it's very nice. I really could tell they've obviously the evolution behind the way they've done that has gotten really well.
That seems to be kind of a trend as Paizo has been developing. Do you think that the CRB over the course of the systems, over 1E to Starfinder to 2E, has been a lot more in mind of giving the create your own tool set incorporated into the game more so? It seems that way. Like 2E, like they give you all the little plug and play things, to do, and putting just as much focus into the being able to have the rule set to create your own stuff as in the core rules.
I do, but I think Paizo's always done that. One thing Paizo does wonderfully is they want to put their creation in the hands of their fans and get their fans to buy in that this is my world too. I remember before I was writing, I'm like, wow, this is cool, this is this, and I felt I had some ownership of the world, and they've just got better at that through listening to fans and having, a PaizoCon. They have these wonderful things where you can sit in and learn about their world, or learn about how to write for them, or learn about how to create a monster. They're super accessible, and I think they've carried that forward and learned how to do that better through their experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned a minute ago that writing for Starfinder kind of, was a fresh take, got your juices flowing creatively. For me, I think that the science fantasy setting is really great because you can not only include those fantastical elements, but you also get the sci-fi elements too. So could you how do you feel about writing Starfinder versus Pathfinder in terms of creative inspiration?
You're asking me which my favorite child is. That's cruel.
Yeah, I know, it is.
I love
sorry.
them both. No, I do love them both. Go back to Pathfinder. I always loved Numeria and that world of science fantasy that's on Galorian. And I remember I got jazzed to be able to write a giant robot in the bestiary of one of the adventure path that dealt with Numeria. And that was always exciting for me. I grew up watching Thundar the Barbarian. I don't know if you know that, but some listeners will know Thundar the Barbarian. Yeah. Lords of Light, and so I was really happy to do that. They're both tropes, like fantasy. I guess you're right. You can to boil it down, whatever you can do in fantasy, you can do in science fantasy. So science fantasy lets you do more, I think.
Right. Well, that's kind of how I feel about it. That's what drew me to the system in the first place, is the kind of freedom to have a little bit of fantasy in your sci-fi and to do both, Mm-hmm. But anyway, can you talk a little bit about the AP writing process? You've written several books of APs. You've written a lot of society stuff. What do you get from Paizo? And what's left to your discretion? Do you get maps or do you create maps? Like what goes into all that?
Yeah, they do give me a lot of stuff. I was looking back onto it when I wrote the Rune Drive Gambit. What they sent to me was a 23-page adventure path Bible, is what we call them. And basically that goes through and gives you the outlines for all three adventures, so you have an idea what's happening before you, and in the first adventure, the second adventure. So when you write the third, you can okay, here's what's happened, here's where it's going, here's where I should, be. They talk about timelines, major NPCs. And then to break it down, then in my little section, it's a little bit more advanced outline, and they give me the word count. They give me what level I start at, what level I end at. Kind of tell me, hey, what kind of monsters we want to see. Like I'm looking at it right now, and it says required monsters: Aeon Guard Specialist, who became a Vandrian, and then the gray alien. So those were the three monsters that they said required. Then for suggested monsters, they just put patrol class security robot. And so when you see those, I'm like, well, they're asking me to put those in, so let's not. You're going to put those in because they're asking you to. As for maps, they say to me I'm allowed 2 pages of maps, and I think I did 4 half pages of maps, and I draw them myself, and I can get you guys some rough copies of that. And the starship, I asked if I can do. There's a starship in every front cover and back cover, and then what's cool about that is then you can use that starship in your adventure and kind of cheat on word count, because you don't have to put the word count in your adventure. You can have it on the front cover. And the same with the monsters. In the back of the book, I wrote 3 monsters, and that way I could, have a couple of unique monsters in my adventures. And those were the Twin Soul, the Entropy Slug, and then the Atlantean Robot, who I actually called the Clockworks Man, but then they changed the name and went with that.
Well, the Twin Soul was a particularly interesting encounter for us as we were running through it, and certainly one of my favorite enemies throughout the entire Aeon Throne adventure path, and to some degree inspired a lot of the story, our personal story that we've put on top of it, just with the idea of this thing existing in 2 planes at once. Just got my wheels going and spun us off in a whole tangent, so kudos to that. I loved the Twin Soul, and it made for a very intense and interesting fight.
It was really fun to write, and like going back to your comment earlier about sci-fi versus fantasy, I don't know if this could have been a monster for fantasy. And I was worried when writing him that maybe he wouldn't have made it in, or she wouldn't have made it in as is, because I kind of was going quite gonzo with the ethereal plane and this plane. But Jason Keeley in development, he didn't change much. Just cleaned up a lot of my grammar. To their credit, they really let a lot of cool things happen in Starfinder. Not that they're not in Pathfinder, because there's some cool stuff there, but like you say, you can just play with space and realities and alternate realities, and it's fun. Yeah,
so what prompted the Twin Soul? Was it the idea of having this lab, or did you come up with the 3 different sections of labs? How did you arrive at this creature?
Yeah, with the Twin Soul, I didn't know what it was going to be. I think in my outline I have to have 2 Greys, and I was going to have them in one of the labs, and I think I wrote Beast for the Greys to be experimenting on. I think that was what I wrote in my outline. And then, you start writing, and as you're writing, you start getting cool ideas, and as you're drawing your maps, you get cool ideas. But you think, okay, this Rune Drive, well, what kind of, in Starfinder, there's the Drift. Then the Atlantis Empire had something that predated the Drift. Well, what was it? What exactly was it? And nothing was ever defined to stone of what this was. So I thought, well, what would help them study a way to unlock the Rune Drive? Well, let's look at bending realities, going to another dimension and hopping through dimensions. And that's where I got the idea for something that exists in 2 planes at once to help power spaceship design.
I thought that was really fascinating. And I also thought that the Bend Travel Lab was the coolest lab. I really dug that approach.
Stargate feel.
Yeah, the Stargate thing. Yeah, I was about it. Not
just Stargate. I think Big Hero 6.
Okay, for sure.
I think that's where my map idea came. I think I was drawing my maps at Christmas time a couple of years ago. It must have been, it's 3 or 4 years ago by now. Jeez. And I remember it was Christmas, and I think Big Hero 6 was on, and my nieces and nephews were watching it, and that scene where the guy goes into and out, I'm like, oh wow, cool, that's such a great idea. And, I'm
gonna take that.
And I thought it'd be so much fun. And again, so much fun for like the Greys to try and trick you to come in there. And you're always hoping every time you listen to a podcast, every time you hear someone say, I like your adventure, you want to know, did you jump through? Did you go in? How did that work? And awesome stories come out of that.
Yeah.
Well, in our case, our captain got dragged through the portal by herself, which was actually a lot of fun because it created a great moment of tension. We spent about 3 turns all trying to decide, are we going to go in or are we going to just see if she comes out? We don't know. Adam showed Emily the picture of the Twin Soul, but didn't show us and told her not to describe it.
Oh, nice.
And so we're like, what is that? What is she fighting? We don't know.
But they still heard the numbers, right? So they still heard, oh, well, does a 37 hit? Oh, that's doing, 28 points of damage in one shot. Here comes the next one. And they're like, what is she facing?
It was neat to do those labs because you could do them in any order. And, if you go straight to that one and don't kind of find equipment and healing, you could really get into trouble. So I think actually in that one, I kind of put a medical lab right beside it because I knew that was going to be a pretty tough encounter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was clutch to have right there at the end, for sure. There's a lot of parties who come into Starfinder without a dedicated healer of any kind. So good on you for throwing that medical lab, just a little pity room at the end there, just in case everything went straight to hell,
That kind of brings me to a question that I had for you, Larry. With the medical lab, that kind of speaks to this idea of balancing your encounters with, the resources that a party might have. And so can you tell us a little bit about the process around encounter building and their frequency? And I ask because Aurelis was a pretty extensive dungeon, if you will, with lots of encounters. Do you consider long rests and short rests as part of the math or the balance for this? How do you determine what a adventuring day is as you're writing something that's so enclosed in it, like Aurelis?
Yeah, definitely. As you're writing too, you know that the character's going to start at a certain level 5, they're going to get to level 6, and they're going to finish at level 7. So you got to also remember too, there is linearity. You start off at Station Z, and I think by the time you leave Station Z, you should level up, and you should have a chance to heal and have downtime. So whatever happened before, you're going to be fresh for Aurelos. And then when you get to Aurelos, it is you can't really leave and come back because there's nowhere to go. And,
Right.
and
Right.
you throw in things like, okay, I'm going to put this sanitation drone who has some information and maybe some information about a rebellion where you can find some equipment that the rebellion was stashing to help you. I'm going to put a medical lab after an encounter that I think could be hard, just because you're going to need that. And I can't control what one party or the next party is going to do, but I do want to put little spots in there where it's quote unquote safe and restock their health, right? Because you can't plan for everything, but you can put things in to help mitigate what they've done.
And I imagine you have a lot of playtesting that goes into that as well. Whenever you're sort of designing these encounters, you want to at least simulate a little bit of the run-through of that so that you can get a gauge for how easy or how difficult the string of encounters would be.
Yeah, definitely. And you try to playtest as much as you can and whenever you can. And I'll be honest, I haven't been able to playtest every single thing I've written over my career, and it probably does show. Like, something that works really well is probably something I've been able to playtest, and something that doesn't work as well is something maybe I wasn't able to playtest how I wanted to. And with the Aeon, the Rune Drive, I was able to get my group to play through sections of it, and it helps, because they needed help at this area. Okay, well, I better put a med pack or a serum of healing. Okay, well, I better put your ally here. I better create this whole area over here that's self-contained that you can maybe trick the little elevator not to work so you can stay in the living quarters and be safe for a little while, right? Mm-hmm. And if you don't play test, and Paizo does expect their freelancers to play test, you'll run into trouble. And I've been guilty of that too.
So it goes. So what do you think is your greatest triumph in this book versus what do you wish that you could have changed, if I can pry that from you?
I think it's perfect. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
great answer.
no,
Great
God,
answer,
God,
man.
No, God, no. For instance, Aeon Guard Specialist, they gave me a little bit of information. I'm just going to give me a sec here. I want to see what they said, because I don't want to because the developers really do help a lot. Yeah. So this Aeon Guard Specialist, like Evandrian, was really cool, and they kind of detailed him about being a trained killer, very good at his job, loyal to the throne, not to Zolan. This area that the PCs can turn him against his Zolan, because this guy's got this ultimate loyalty to the Aslanti Empire, not to the Sardat. And just being able to write him and have him kind of be a thorn in your sides and let you guys or the PCs potentially sway him or not sway him. It's written in the book, hey, what happens if the PCs kill him early? Well, they do. Good for them. What happens if the PCs turn him against the Sardat? Here's what happens. And that was really challenging to do. And for Paizo to kind of introduce this character, and here's what we want this guy, and he can be a double agent or he can go sway to each side. I really enjoyed that about the book, and it brought a lot of character to the book, I thought.
Yeah, I thought it was nice to have an Aeon Guard that did have a personality. Because throughout the adventure, you're fighting a lot of literally faceless enemies, as they all have that helmet, and they're all, you kind of stormtroopers, if you will. They all end up just being the same. And then you have this one that does cause a lot of grief for the party, but it gives you like a kind of a through line for Aurelos of a villain that you want to just deal with but can't, and it just kind of gives some momentum to it while giving a particular characterization to an enemy type that had been otherwise kind of samey throughout,
Yeah.
He provided a great foil for us, I thought. I know I loved to hate him, but I did appreciate that he was more developed, like Adam said, than in your normal Aeon Guard. So I think you did great with that. It was a lot of fun, those series of encounters. I know that my character absolutely hated him, and I think he called him Rat Boy all the time because he scurried off every time we'd get the upper hand. But it was a lot of fun to have him constantly antagonizing you and constantly being worried about him popping up in a random place. You never really felt 100% comfortable being there. You knew Zolan wasn't there, right?
Yeah.
He was coming. He was going to arrive later, but Evandrian was on site, and he was always a potential threat.
Yeah, and for some stuff I would like to have done more of. I thought in the second book, Outpost Z, Eleanor created such a fun sandbox to play in. I would like to be able to play in there more, but because my bulk of my adventure was at Orillos, I was only able to put 2 to 3 encounters on Outpost Z, but that place was pretty cool. And listening to you guys' podcast and seeing just how that evolves and things that you guys put into our writing is really cool. And the majority of that's thrown into Outpost Z, which I really get a kick out of.
Yeah, Outpost Z is just a fascinating locale. Like, how can you not just milk as much out of that as you can? Because it's so weird and roadhousey, and it's great.
Yeah.
Well, it's so alien. It's, like when your characters get there, they don't speak any of the languages. They don't know what to make of these creatures that they come across. They're not Pact Worlds races, so to speak. So having you really feel like a fish out of water, and I think that was, when we talked to Eleanor about this, that was something that she really wanted to do, was give you that sense. And so coming back to it and then dealing again with Skraylen and the Dralix at Third Eye Salvage, that was a nice capstone, because we had an encounter with the Dralix when we first got to Outpost Z. And so you kind of get to conclude the arc of the asparagus heads early in book 3,
Yeah, and that's something I got a kick out of too. You rate race, that's there, and you guys come up with the nickname asparagus heads, and then now when I look at art, I'm like, yep, they're walking asparagus.
Yeah, you can't unsee it.
You've ruined it for me. No, but it's great though.
Correction, we made it better for
That's
you.
right. That's right.
There you go.
No, but yeah, I loved that book 3 started back at Outpost Z, and that you had this like week to spend there, because you did have all these different encounters with the assassination plot going with the Reptoid and everything like that. And so like you had this week to really get to dig into Outpost Z, and like before you leave it forever, right? Because once you leave Outpost Z to go to Orillos, there's no going back.
Yeah.
You're kicking the Aslanti Beehive as hard as you've kicked it so far in the adventure, and so like heading back to Outpost Z, being anywhere in Aslanti star space 24 hours after leaving Orillos is a bad idea, and so like we got in there and gave it what we got, and Heath's character was able to give me a good like latch to build on with the boxing and everything. So
that was cool.
fun.
That was really cool, because as a writer, we're kind of slaves to our word count. We have to sit at the word count. You'd love to detail every nook and cranny. So when, we can only put in so much, but when you see a GM like yourself or other GMs out there who add to that story and flesh out what I never would have thought of a boxing tournament. I never would have thought of that, but it's so cool and it works, and it keeps the characters there it gives them something to do for that week other than just sitting around in that, little space suite I had. And I love to see GMs do that, to take something, that I may have made a 7 and they make it a 9 or a 10. That's so rewarding as a writer to see you guys, take any idea or take any setting and the PCs. I rate the set piece, I rate the bad guys, but you guys are the protagonists. That's really cool.
Yeah, well, writing without protagonists, that's got to be a challenge, man. That's got to be so tricky, because you don't know what kind of personalities, what kind of strengths, weaknesses these people are going to have. So you really kind of have to leave it open-ended, I would imagine.
Yeah, and write in a lot of different things. Like there's the assassination plot. How do you uncover that? There's Evandrian having the hostages behind that shimmering sphere that's electrocuted them. Do you fight? Do you talk? Do you engineer your way through that? You really want to provide multiple ways to attack a problem, right? And that's how you get around that. Maybe your one protagonist is a super engineer, and your other group, it's an envoy who talks his way out of everything, and Captain Kirk's its way through. So you really gotta leave things open-ended, and you get those GMs who get to see the characters, the protagonists, and they get to then see, hey, I've got this Vesk fighter. Well, let's have a boxing tournament on Outpost Ed. Brilliant. Loved it. Thank you.
No, thank you. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the whole beauty of the whole medium of storytelling that is tabletop role playing, is that it's always going to be collective storytelling. You know, like, it's always dependent on a lot of people's ideas and creativity coming together in this kind of like sum that's greater than its parts story. But it's kind of scary for anybody who's like used to writing a controlled story, because so much of it is up in the air and randomized, and for you to have to, you know, be tasked with putting out an adventure that any group can sit down and play, despite not only the differences in the player characters, but the players themselves and what their style is of playing and how groups, all that dynamic. I think that you've done a good job, particularly in this book, with leaving enough space for it to adapt to a party by that point who's already spent 6 levels together, you know? So there's been a lot of development leading up to that point, you know, that needs to be involved in the main story. But if the story's written too closely, then there's no room for the party to influence it.
Spread their wings. Yeah. That goes back to Paizo as well. It's, you know, my name's on the front of the book, and I did the writing, but there's several developers and several people at Paizo who go through and fix everything and make things, you know. I'm sure if I go back to my original manuscript that I handed in, there may be some areas where I did pigeonhole or like force people one way. And Paizo, you know, they do a great job. They've been in this business for a while, and they're all experienced. They do a great job of making sure that any mistake that I have is taken care of. You know, like, my job is to write a B+ to A- manuscript, and their job is to make it an A+. And working with Jason Keeley, was fantastic.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's certainly a team effort, and there's layers to it, right? Because there's you, and then there's Paizo adding something on top of what you wrote, and then the GM is going to add something on top of that, and then the players are going to add something on top of that, so that you get
well,
wild
and then the dice
variances.
have the final say.
Oh, true.
You know, like,
no matter what you do, right? You roll that damn
right.
one.
Speaking of the dice, is that something that you really have to think about? Like, what if players fail every roll that they make? Do you write contingencies beyond the scope, right?
The good example there is there's 2 I can think of. The one is the little pods you get to sleep in, and you get trapped in the pod and have to break your way out. You know, you could break your way out. You could find a hidden latch. You could have your friends break you out. You could have them go to the computer and hack you out. So you start thinking about, okay, well, if I actually, and there's a lot of time to suffocate, but if someone actually suffocated in there, I'd feel pretty darn bad. Like, I just want you to get close to suffocating. And so you just always put, you know, if I was really cruel, I would never put the person inside couldn't get out because it'd be too tight. They couldn't punch through. They couldn't find that emergency latch, right? So you want to seed those things in case the guy smacking it from outside rolls a 1 and the guy working on the computer screws up. You want to have multiple ways to get out of a problem.
Do you ever write encounters with the intention of them being lethal?
I don't think I do consciously. You know, if I just got in a fight with my wife that night, maybe I do. No, I'm kidding. My wife is super supportive and a lovely woman. It's a joke. If she listens to this, I'm sorry. Yeah. No, I don't think I do. It's a fine line between challenging and not scaring. Scaring's not the word I want to use, but if you have an encounter or a series of encounters and it's easy, it's boring. If you have a series of encounters that are too hard, it's frustrating. You know, and this is a lot too of what Paizo has kind of taught you with, you know, development notes is you want to, you know, put a couple hard encounters in an easy encounter, or, you know, you've got 4 PCs, you want to challenge 3, but have 1 class can shine. And that comes with experience, because like you say, that class may not be there to shine. So your group of only fighters is going to be in trouble if they don't have the thief to pick the door. So you want to be able to have that door being battered down, but battering that door down causes a lot of noise and brings a lot of enemies to the scene, right? So I don't think I ever go in trying to kill anybody, and I'm not one of those people who, you know, I think most of us will joke, oh, total party kill. But I think if I had several total party kills. I think I failed the players. I want them to have memories. You know, like I think back and say, oh my God, when I first went through Castle Amber, here's what I remember. Hey, when I first went through Keep on the Borderlands and I said Briark, you know, those are the memories I want people to have.
Yeah, like I'm not opposed to character death, but I do think that total party kill is, you should be able to see that coming before it happens and try to prevent it. Because the TPK, like, unless there is just a super, super valid story reason, and I think that's far and few between, a total party kill
kills the camp. Kills the campaign.
That's over. You're not going to come back with 4 or 5 new, brand new characters and like have the same investment in the story as those characters.
I guess in Against the Aeon Throne, what you could do is say, okay, we're some scientists now, and the PCs gave us the opportunity to rebel, but it's not what you.
That's a really good out. Actually, I hadn't even thought of that, but that would be a great way to do it if you did.
I think a GM, Adam, included, I think you can always find a way to introduce it, but I've been the same way. Like I've had a long campaign and we're having a great time, and then unfortunately, oh my God, we accidentally TPK'd the party, didn't see it coming, it happened, and then we tried to restart the game, and our character's like, well, I'm not motivated, so I don't, do I try and kill one of the PCs? I don't know. If a PC dies, is that good? Well, if it's good for the story, it's good. If the PC is like, in my home games, I've had a friend say, hey, I'm bored of this character, and kill him off. We've written that into the story and had an epic Obi-Wan Kenobi self-sacrifice moment, right? But that being said, how do I say it? There needs to be a threat of consequences, and what those consequences are, like if there's a player who's doing things and they are going to get their PC will get killed by it, well, that threat has to be there. That threat has to be real. You can't just do a Sex Machina save them every time, because then the players will get lazy, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm right to say, hey, at this encounter, I'm gonna kill people.
I expect this encounter to take 1 or 2 of the party out.
Yeah. No, and I think Paizo would not give me jobs if that's how I was writing. Yeah. Right. And in fact, the way you're right, it's a formula, right? Like you look for the encounter levels and the challenge ratings, and I think challenge rating +3 is epic, and you're only allowed to have like 1 epic in your adventure, right? So Zoland would be the epic encounter. That's the one where we might kill you, and that's the capstone grand finale.
Yeah, that's where if you die, it feels heroic.
Yeah,
anyway,
and Evandrian is probably encounter level +2, where if he happens to kill a PC, well, that can happen. But Skrailing or Grasslix, they probably shouldn't be the TPKers.
Grasslix folded quick under Titanium Mike's punches. I didn't get anywhere with that.
It was a little sad. I see that's the part that hurts me more. When you talk about what I would like to do better, and you don't always. Sometimes this formula doesn't always work. You're like, oh, that was way too easy for them. I would like to have given them more challenge. Or, wow, I wrote that and had this cool Reptoid assassin. I would like to be able to cat and mouse a little more, but that's okay.
In the specific instance of our show, it was just kind of who ended up being next to Grasslix when the reveal happened. If it had been Ziva and Xeno, that would have gone a lot differently. But when you have Mike there, who can punch through 3 walls with 1 punch,
it's not going to last.
No.
and that goes to speak with I can't control every party out there.
But that gives whatever party, hey, we crushed that encounter, but then when we got to the Twin Soul and we didn't have the means to deal with this, so different encounters probably are different difficulties based on the party makeup,
Yeah, and you want to give the PCs moments where they destroy the enemy. That's important too. They want to feel powerful, and that's important.
They need to have some wins for sure.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
So let's talk for a second about some of your favorite NPCs and your inspirations from them. So what would you say are your favorite? You mentioned Evandrian, I think. What about Murgleburr? How did that come about?
Murgleburg is awesome, and this is, again, I have to give huge credit to Jason Keeley. Murgleburg's not mine, and I'm glad you brought that up, because this is what I'm talking about. It takes a community to make a great adventure. I know when I was designing that encounter, the prisoner there, I made a Shimreen because couple books later, I was asked to develop a monster, and I developed this crystalloid creature called the Shimmerine. I thought, okay, cool, I'll throw him in here now. Jason, to his credit, saw, okay, listen, this race of creature, who Merleburg is, was written more recently, and he created that character, and that's a highlight of the book almost. From when I talk to people, they ask about Merleburg all the time, and he always has the same voice. He's always got that wet talk, and he cracks everybody up, and he's a great. I think another weakness I have is I don't write comedy well. And he creates a great comic relief in this dark, dour, horrible, oppressive place that helps to reinforce that, but also brings brevity to the situation. So Jason Keeley, I assume, maybe it was some other person working, but I believe it's Jason Keeley, created Merleburg, and I can't even say the name. And I remember flipping.
It took me forever to settle on a pronunciation.
Yeah. We'll get our contributor copies, and you flip through and you look, and you're like, oh, what's this? This is different. So then you're skimming through, and you stop when you see something different, and you read, right? And I'm like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, damn you, Jason, for thinking of this, and I did. Damn you. But it just makes me look better. But that needs to be attributed to Jason Keeley. And this is why it's not just the person on the front of the book who works on these. And one of the coolest characters in the whole book, and shucks, it's not mine, but that's great. I love it.
It was definitely a fun NPC, and as you said, it comes in right at the time that you need a little punch of
brevity,
of relief, of okay, here's some exposition, and it's kind of a funny weirdo character. We can smile for a second because we've just been under assault, or for every moment.
Not only that,
in here.
Yeah, being under assault, and also the oppressiveness of the area with the racist undertones, which isn't always easy to write, and the hatred of anything alien from the Aslanti, which is, it's not. You try and write it, and you want to hammer that home, and you want to find that balance between, am I being a jerk, or am I being just doing enough to get the story across? So Merleburg in there was needed, and for my developers to see that and to say, hey, listen, let's bring this moment of light here and give the players something to enjoy. Again, brought my book from a B+ to an A+, hopefully, and definitely, or maybe from a C- to a B+, who knows, but it sure did help.
Yeah, a very memorable NPC. What about Oliviana? Can you talk about Oliviana for a second?
Yeah.
Was she kind of...
Did you have a science teacher you didn't like?
Yeah, no, there was, I saw the art of her when it came out. I was surprised. It's not what I envisioned in my head, but it works. It's great. It's a doctor. Just that snooty scientist. I wrote her up. I think I went in one version. Maybe she was really ultra one-sided love towards the Zolan and ultra loyal, loved him, but he didn't love her back. But she just ended up being someone to push off the get to work kind of to show that we're working 24/7.
Yeah, I think she plays a lot better as a taskmaster, than a hopeless devotee to because I could see that. I could certainly see that story playing out and that could definitely be filled out, but I think it helps sell the situation at Aurelos a lot more to have her being we're almost there, figuring it out, just having that obsessed with the science bit of it,
Well, I didn't catch that she kind of had a thing for Zolan, but in hindsight, absolutely, of course she did, right? It makes sense to me. No, speaking of Zolan.
Well, Zolan's easy, right? Zolan was pretty much, even the way I wrote him, I almost made a mistake with Zolan, actually. In part of the Adventure Path Bible, they have a little blurb of what they want on the covers, and they give you a scene in the covers, and I'm sure I can read it to you, or give you a quick little thing of it, because that's what they're going to put on the front cover, so they want you to have a little scene that will depict, and basically just says that you're in a really clean research laboratory, white walls, little bits of machinery, and you're fighting Aeon guards. That's the back scene. If you look on the cover, that's the back scene. And then on the front scene, it gives, this is a male Aslanti noble and military officer It says he has high cheekbones, black hair, widow's peak, bronze skin, violet eyes, and he has a Solarian weapon that is similar to a longsword. When I first wrote him up, I totally missed that he had a longsword, and I made him like more of a graviton Solarian. And thank God before I handed it in, I went and read that again to make sure. So I had to tweak him a bit, but I looked at that and I thought, well, I've already have him a graviton where he's pushing back bolts of energy and deflecting laser beams. He's Darth Vader with a lightsaber, right? It's pretty. I think it's pretty obvious. He's clone of, well, not a clone, but inspired by, Darth Vader. And like you said earlier, the Aeon Guards reminded you of Stormtroopers. I got that same vibe, right? Stark, clean, emotionless, helmeted.
Like rigid clones. There's such rigid uniformity because this is such a totalitarian empire. And you look at you look at just that. I think the Star, if I could say it, and maybe I can't, but you look at that intellectual property and their inspiration, what it seems for their enemy, it's kind of the same inspiration for the Aslanti when you think of they have a shared inspiration. So it was hard, it's hard not to think how, and obviously the Solarian is also probably tied a little bit to that other intellectual properties, mystic weapon wielders. Yeah. That battle of celestial bodies.
Yeah. But of course it's like I said before, Thundar the Barbarian had an energy weapon. It's all through science fantasy where they have power swords and laser swords, and I'm sure George Lucas got his inspiration from the same pulp magazines that inspire Pathfinder and Starfinder. It's a trope, and it's a wonderful trope. And as I was writing, obviously I'm 46 years old. I saw Star Wars. I loved Star Wars. So it's going to be hard not to creep in a little bit, right?
Yeah, especially if you have the chance, and you have such an empire like the Aslanti. It would be almost a shame if you didn't capitalize on it just a little bit.
And that, the little bit's exactly the word I want to stress, because he's not wearing black armor. He doesn't have rebreather problems. He's not Darth Vader. And I did not want to make him anywhere near Darth Vader. But just Darth Vader has a cool air of villainous with him, and I wanted Zolan to have that too, right? But,
well, I'm not going to lie and say that I wasn't a little tempted to have a reveal that one of the party was related to Zolan Ulvestre, But I didn't. I pulled back on that.
I don't think that's a thing that other parties have drawn upon that I've heard stories about. And I think that's great too. If it goes back to the GM, I've created a little bit, it goes back to word count. I can only have so many words dedicated to the Sardat. If a player or a GM reads it and says, hey, I want to take this and go and create this, and even if that means changing Sardat and Zolan Ulvestre greatly to mesh your game, do it. And I think that's great. I think that's great. This adventure won't play out the exact same way at two tables. Right? That's shared storytelling you mentioned is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but to the Solarian point, Adam had asked us privately. We knew about Zolan. We had gotten his journals, and we'd learned about him and all this kind of stuff. And he asked us, what class do you think the Sardat is? And we had named off operative, technomancer, and all this stuff. But when we encountered him on that bridge and he pulled out his solar weapon, we were all like, he's a Solarian! Oh my, it was a huge, because we weren't expecting it, but it was like, of course he is. That's a perfect class for him, and we were all really excited that he was in fact a Solarian for sure.
Yeah, and he may have been the one NPC that I would hope could kill somebody, but I'm okay if he didn't. I'm happy if he didn't.
Well, I sure tried, Larry.
Tried. You failed me for the last time. Yeah, no.
No. So, speaking of Starfinder classes, Larry, what are some of your favorite Starfinder races and classes? What do you get into? If you wanted to roll something up right now, what would you roll up?
Well, because I'm vain, of course, I do like the Shimmerine, because I was the first one to write them, and they did make it into the Alien Archive 2 or 3, I can't remember. But in that instance, someone else had written them and added a little more to them, which makes me like them even more. So, I do like the Shimmerine. If you don't know what they're, again, the crystalloid creatures, and I really have a soft spot for them. I like the Yosoki. I like the little rat guys, you know, and that was even before, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy. But Yosoki's always fun to roll up. And, you know, I think if I was playing a class, I think I would be drawn towards the Envoy or the Operative. I was actually quite surprised. The Operative did nothing for me, to be honest. So I started writing Evandrian and really got into what they could do. I was like, oh, geez, these guys are pretty good. And,
I had a similar revelation when I started rolling dice for Evandrian and like really interacting with the Operative skill sets and things that you can do. You're like, man, this feels good. Like this is like, you feel pretty badass doing some of that trick shot stuff.
Trick attack is a sleeper. It really is. People are sleeping on it. I think so.
And I agree. That being said, in the core rulebook, all the classes are really cool. I remember when I was starting to write for them and they sent me the PDF before it came out, and I started looking through it. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Because it's not just Space Fighter, Space Wizard, Space Cleric, you know. It was really cool. And, you know, they've even come out with a couple more classes, which I actually haven't had a chance to look at too much, but I better. But it's just, it's kind of hard to say which is my favorite. The Vesk are cool, like big lizard men, like big chunky boys. Like, I don't know, they're just really cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Witch Warper is a really cool class that's from the from the new set of classes.
Yeah,
I really dig those.
Speaking of that, I was my last writing for Starfinder, which isn't quite out yet, but it should be coming out in the Devastation Arc Adventure Path at Dominion's End. I got to write in the first Adventure Path that came out. There was I think in book 5 or book 4, relics of the Kishali, who's from this long lost alien race that was a superpower. Well, their enemy, or their sworn enemy, were the Civ, and I got to write the Civ, Empire, the Civ relics. And a lot of the Civ relics had stuff with quantum mechanics and alternate realities. And
all right,
you know,
I'm going to have to stop you there, Larry. We're playing Devastation Arc.
I'm soaking it up. I'm taking notes.
A little teaser.
I can't wait.
All right. Well, anyway, I got to write that article, so we'll be interested to see what the players find their get their hand on. And the cool thing too is, I wrote the back.
Maybe I can get that kill for you with that book.
Yeah. No worries. I'm sure you will. No, but it's cool because they're going to take that article and then look at some of the items I wrote, or maybe that the author wrote, and add it to that article, and to tie that together with that. So it's pretty exciting that it's fun to write back matter stuff. It's fun to write adventures. It's fun to do every little bit. Anything that Paizo gives me, I always enjoy doing it.
Well, yeah, I was actually going to ask you what you thought. I know you've written a lot of society stuff for both Pathfinder and Starfinder. What would you say are the biggest differences between writing a book for an AP versus writing a society module?
Yeah, do the easiest thing first is the word count. Obviously, Starfinder and Pathfinder Society are less words, but that's a challenge that's easier and harder at the same time. Harder because you want to tell a story and you've got to really be tight with your words to not go over your words, because there's a hard word limit for pages and art and what will fit. And it's easier because you can get done more quickly. And I think a Starfinder Society, you're looking at about 4 to 6, 5 to 7 encounters, probably more around 5 if you're going to average it out. And you can be really tight with your writing, but being tight with your writing, sometimes like, oh crap, if I could just develop this a little bit more, it would be better, but you got to really be tight. Writing an adventure path is a lot of responsibility, because you're not just writing you're not just writing your story. This one was easier because I was at the tail end of it. I was writing the 3rd book of 3, so I didn't have to worry about what came after. What came after doesn't matter, because you've done this story. You'll go to a new story, and GM can take something from this if they want or not. You'll be in a whole different sector of space, in fact. Writing something, I think I wrote the 2nd book of an adventure path a couple of times, and you really got to say, the players got here. How did the players get here? Do you want to have any reoccurring enemy or reoccurring theme from that book? And you don't always get to see that book. That book, that book won't be written, or it's being written at the same time. So I've contacted other authors and said, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. Like a good example, in Vault of the Onyx Citadel, I had contacted Amber Scott and said, hey, I'm making this NPC who I'd like to be the father of one of your NPCs. How do you feel about that? And you're including the developer in this discussion. And she was graciously, great idea. Go ahead and do it. Here's here's some ideas, and all of them fantastic and better than what I originally thought of, and was able to add that to that. So you don't have to do that, but you want to, like a souffle, you want to weave these adventures into each other. And it takes more time. It's challenging. It's, you're sharing the story more. Like the Pathfinder Society and Starfighter Society, in the past, they were self-contained. It'd be one, it'd be two, and maybe there'd be two that are linked. Starfinder, now everything is linked, or everything is part of a greater story. So because I've written Adventure Paths, I'm more able to think about that, to think of, okay, I have to think of a greater thing than just my story. Sometimes in the smaller ones, the Pathfinder and Starfinder, you have more control over what you write. And in the bigger ones, it's easier because you have more of an outline that you get to follow. So they're both good. They're both good. Obviously, you get paid by the word, so that you get paid more for the bigger ones. So that's really nice too.
Yeah, so the bigger ones have more incentive. For sure.
Well, they're both good. Sometimes it's nice just to bang out a couple small ones and not be too stressed, because you'll get that fatigue where, God, I've been writing about this and I'm done with it. And thank God that writer's block doesn't last, very long, and you get back on it. But with the shorter ones, you don't usually get that as much. Yeah,
well, you mentioned something about writing the end of an AP and how you like that, because what comes after that doesn't necessarily matter quite as much, because you're going to be in a different thing. I took a look at the Rune Drive Gambit after we finished, of course. Yeah. I wouldn't do that to Adam. But in kind of the back section, it mentions certain things about perhaps a certain Aslanti gets word of this and comes after them. So, like, do you write those, or is that Paizo that throws that stuff in there?
In that instance, the article is called usually Continuing the Campaign, I think. In this instance, it wasn't me. It was, probably was Jason. I assume it was Jason Keeley or someone who had edited or developed it, because they had read the whole thing and thought, okay, what can I do to continue this? But I think if I looked into my book, maybe it would say who it was. But yeah, that I didn't write. And that's cool. That was cool for me to read too, because like, oh, how can you continue this? I believe in some instances, maybe some authors do that. In the ones where I've written the capstone, I've never done the continue the adventure. It's always been someone else. And I think there'd been two parts. The part 6 I wrote, Vault of the Onyx Citadel, and then this part 3, and I did not do that. But it's really, I think it's almost better not to, because someone can look at your adventure with fresh eyes and without assumptions, and okay, here's what we're going to do. Maybe they might even have an idea. From what I've heard, I've never seen it, there's a big whiteboard in Paizo, and they have all their adventure ideas and what they're going to do, and those move up and down depending upon what they want to do and how they want to do it, or what's hot in the current social media, or what's not hot, or oh my God, they just did this, we don't want to do it now, cross it off. Maybe these campaign things are things that are on their board and they want to seed it in. So 5 years from now, when they return to Aslanti space, maybe this family will be there. I don't know. I'm speculating, but these guys are smart. A lot of their books, they seed ideas into their books, and I think they obviously they know what they're doing.
Well, let me ask you this, kind of to follow up with that. So with the APs, I know that there's a general canon for Golarion and Pathfinder, and that the way that the APs work in Pathfinder is that they're kind of chronological, like as if these events happened in Golarion kind of one after another, right? And like that things, the easiest one that I can think of right off the bat, because I'm not like super familiar with all the APs, but like with Jade Regent, you have connections to Rise of the Rune Lords, and the events of Rise of the Rune Lords has already happened and referenced in Jade Regent to some degree. Is that the same thing for Starfinder? So it's like Dead Suns, the kind of beginning of the timeline for playing Starfinder, and then Against the Aeon Throne is like right after the events or simultaneously happening? Or?
Yeah, if you haven't noticed, and you know what, I haven't looked if it's for Starfinder, but I assume it is, but for Pathfinder, it totally is this. First edition anyway. If you look at the current year of Pathfinder, it's the same year we are. So Pathfinder Society is, the last two numbers will be 20.
Gotcha.
And when they started Pathfinder Society, the last two numbers were whatever year they first started. And every new season, or if it's two seasons to a year, the plot advances a year. So our 2020 is the same as Glorian. I'm making up a number here. Our 2020 is the same as Glorian's 1420. Like just for like for timing, so the writers can, just so you don't forget what date you're on. I think they did that for ease, And then, like you say, what happened in Rise of the Rune Lords happened in, say, 2000. I'm going to make up the number because I don't remember. So that happened in 2007. So it would have been 1407. And then now the newest adventure, Age of Extinction. I don't even know what the new second one is. I apologize.
Age of Ashes.
Age
or
of
Extinction
Ashes.
Curse.
No, Extinction Curse. I put them together. I'm sorry. Extinction Curse, if they've carried that through, would be set in the year XX20.
Right. Okay.
And I wonder if they've done that, but I need to look. I actually had.
I know they have for 2E.
I chose to switch my Pathfinder subscription into Starfinder, just because I thought.
Why not? What happened?
You still with us, Larry?
There was a freeze.
Oh, okay.
I'm with you. Yeah, frozen man. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. Well, you actually ended up answering my next question, which was going to be, do you think that the Aslanti are going to appear somewhere down the road again, another Starfinder adventure? Do you think that we'll ever go up against the
speculation
actual
only,
Aeon?
of course.
Well, and it would only be speculation, but in my idea, they're such a cool villain. You certainly hope they would, and there's a whole, they've just teased you. You just put your toe in the water. You were at the fringe of the space, we
barely even got into it with them.
You did not go to New Thespera. You just went to the Diet Coke of Atlantis space, just that little bit. So I don't know when or if or how, but if they do, I'd sure like to rate them again. And if they, as a Starfinder fan, you'd like to see them somewhere, and that might be in a whole series, maybe in a Society's season. There'll be the invasion of the Aztec.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be a new adventure path. I don't know what they will do. But it'd be cool.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. They're a great villain. You love to hate them.
Yeah,
they're
a classic trope, and they've got a cool twist to them. I mean, the fact that they're original descendants of Galorian that's blown up is even cooler.
Yeah, I really like that, because then you have all this extra lore that, while it's not very particularly relevant to the Starfinder Aslanti, you still have where they came from, plus all of the stuff that Pathfinder has developed for them. So you have this lost city of Atlantis that has a lost civilization of Atlantis that went to space and became the new lost civilization of Atlantis. It's really, really interesting dynamic.
Yeah, and for Paizo to have all that stuff, like I said, I'd be surprised if they never ever went back to the Aslanti. Or even, they're starting to do a lot of stuff like we talked about earlier with the Witch Warper, this alternate realities. Maybe they'll have a Starfinder adventure path where you go back to Galorian in the past on Aslanti and get to screw with that.
Yeah, you try to stop them from them from leaving.
Yeah, that would be neat.
In the first place.
Change
it's be the
timelines
reverse of the Pathfinder adventure that has Starfinder elements, but this would be the Starfinder adventure that drops you into a Pathfinder world where you would just decimate everybody, let's be real, with your laser guns. But
well, it'd be tough, right? Because there's always something we're told as writers: don't break the toys, right? Don't break. The coolest thing I got to do in one of the adventure passes is, I don't know if you're familiar with it, I got to blow up a city called Vigil in Last Watch. And normally you would never get to blow up a city. I got to atom bomb the city, destroy it. I got to
major place in the canon.
Yeah. And I got to what's called break the toys, and that was an honor that they trusted me to break one of their toys. Obviously, they gave me permission to do that, because if I wrote an adventure, I wanted to destroy this, they would no, we didn't write 15 source books talking about this for some idiot to come in and ruin it. But to be able to do that with their blessing was fantastic. I was excited when I read that. I'm like, ooh. Because you think about it, I've probably killed the most NPCs ever. I've killed a whole city of tens of thousands. I don't know if
in one go, right?
It's one shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome.
I'm a sick person.
That's got to be a...
So you do write Lethal Encounters?
Yeah, I do. Apparently. Yeah. I guess I do.
Just citywide. Well, just citywide. Is there anything that you're currently working on, or you've just finished up, that you can talk about what you've got coming up?
Yeah, like I said, the thing I have coming up, which I can kind of talk about is the Devastation's Arc Adventure Path, where I'm writing a back article about a sister article to the Relics of the Kishili. And if I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. So I'm doing the Relics of the Civ. and I'm excited about that. And that'll come out in a little while. I think in September. And then what I'm doing now actually is kind of really cool. I'm doing this for a different company, not Paizo. I'm doing it for why am I drawing a blank? Green Ronin, and I'm working with someone who I did work with in Paizo, Crystal Fraser, I can't say how much I admire this person. I kind of strive to be a lot like her because she is a fantastic writer, does amazing maps, is an amazing artist, and I've just drawn a lot of inspiration from her work. And we contacted each other, and I'm doing a superhero adventure, which I'm totally jazzed about. I get to do, I've done fantasy, I've done sci-fi, and now I get to do supers. So I'm a bit scared because it's a bit different, but I'm also very excited to try that, to write superhero games.
Of those like alternate RPGs, and that's like based on the Fate system, is that right?
No, it's a D20. It's like it's just a D20, and
just a D20.
Yeah, you target numbers, and if you get like higher than 5, you have a better effect. Yeah, just the D20. It's quite interesting, and that's part of it being a bit nervous. It's a bit different from what I've been doing, but I'm a role player. I've tried a lot of different games, and I have played Mutants and Masterminds in the past, but not 3rd edition. So I'm looking forward to trying something new. But that being said, I will always want to and accept any work that Paizo gives me, because they're fantastic to work for as well.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Larry, I think we've taken up enough of your time, man. I know we could just go on and ramble about our shared love of games and writing. However, maybe we can have you back during Devastation Arc sometime,
yeah, that'd be great.
we can talk again about the new challenges that you throw at us. So, Larry Wilhelm, thank you so much for joining us, man. We really appreciate it. It's been great to pick your brain. Please come back again.
My pleasure. So much fun, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you.
We'll see you.